Now we're going to talk about how to actually set up for some of these equations. In this video, we're going to end with going over the bolus medication equation. But we got to first figure out some of these important terms that we're going to use. And so we have here 5 big terms or major terms that you need to have a good understanding of in order to be able to do our equations. So the first term that's really important to understand is my desired dose, right? And this is really just answering the question, how much drug to give. How much drug are we trying to give? How much medication? What's our desired dose that we're trying to give to our patient? Now, the next important thing is drug on hand. And I'll abbreviate that with DH. Desired dose was DD. Drug on hand, DH. And this is simply how much drug do I have? So in my vial, how much drug is actually in there? Next, I have my desired volume, my DV. So this is how much volume, in this case we'll say fluid, to give. How much fluid are we going to give this patient? Again, your vials of medication will have an amount of drug and an amount of fluid, and that's the volume on hand, is how much fluid do I have? I should put question marks at the end of all of these, shouldn't I? These are questions. How much do I have? And then finally, the last real important concept that we have to, this term that we really have to understand is going to be my concentration. So my concentration tells me how much drug per milliliter. In most cases, for us as paramedics, what I'm inevitably trying to get to the answer of with concentration is how much drug per milliliter. So whether that's how many milligrams per milliliter, how many grams per milliliter, how many micrograms per milliliter. But when I break it down with concentration, what I want to get to is a single milliliter, because that makes it very functional for me to use. I can give a milliliter or 5 milliliters or 10 milliliters. So this brings it to a base functional unit for us to administer. Now concentration is a very simple equation here. It's going to be the drug on hand divided by the volume on hand. Drug on hand divided by volume on hand. So we're going to see how this works. I have some examples that we're going to do in a few minutes, but I'm just taking the amount of, and I'm going to look at my vial, see how much medication, how much drug is in that vial, and divide that by how many milliliters there are. And that's how I get my concentration. And then I can therefore use that to then administer the correct dose. So those are important terms. Now we're going to talk about the first real important equation. Again, there's 3 major equations that we're going to be going over and covering. And again, you can do almost anything in med math with those 3 equations. The first one we're going to be talking about is a bolus medication equation. What I'm trying to do with a bolus is just give a simple, just quick amount of drug, right? This isn't going to drip through over time. This is meant to be, something that I'm going to push within, a short period of time, get this medication into them. I can do this with an IV, an intramuscular, or subcutaneous. There's a bunch of ways that I can go about this, intraosseous, but this is just trying to figure out how much medication I'm trying to administer. In most cases, when you look at our protocols, when you look at the way that we explain and express our procedures and how we're going to, our interventions, you're going to be giving a certain amount of drug to the patient. So our protocols will say for like Zofran, you're going to be giving 4 milligrams of Zofran, right? So the bolus medication equation most of the time is trying to figure out, well, how much volume is 4 milligrams of Zofran? That's where we're going to figure out and use this equation. So let's show this equation, and then we're going to get into examples of everything I just talked about to kind of show how this all works. So with this bolus medication equation, very simple. Desired dose, so how much do I want to give the patient, over, divided by, right, the drug on hand. How much medication do I have in my vial? So how much am I trying to give the patient, desired dose? How much am I trying to, or how much do I have in the vial that I, have in my hand? And I'm going to do this so you guys have the actual definitions to look at with this. So again, desired dose, and I'm going to put that over drug on hand, and then I will just simply times that by my volume on hand. And that's going to equal the desired volume. Because again, I'm 90% of the time, 99% of the time, I know how much drug I'm trying to give. What is always the question is how, most of the time, what the question is, how much volume is that desired dose.